Wisconsin Sports. I'm your host, John Gittings.
I'm the co-host, Kenny Cams.
All right, we're just gonna recap the first two Packer games, share our thoughts, and then in the comments you can share whatever thoughts you have. So we're gonna start with the first game. Outside of the running game, let's just face it, that was a disaster.
Yep, yep. And even watching it, like it's kind of what we talked about in the preview that we did. I was like, those first couple of games for those younger receivers going to be dropped. It's going to be mental lapses. This is their first time on a big stage, so I wasn't surprised Watson dropped a touchdown. I wasn't.
You know what? Me either. But still, that was just that to me, like just set the tone for the game. It felt like obviously I didn't think of it there. Obviously it's just the first quarter. I don't think anything of it. But now, like looking back, I was just like, man, that just set the tone for it. But see, honestly, a thing about that to me was it kind of illustrated a problem that I feel has always been the case with Aaron Rodgers. Like just and here I'll just give you an example to show you. Tom Brady, if Christian Watson was open the next play, Tom Brady would have thrown to him.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Rodgers didn't even throw to him again until the fourth quarter.
Yep.
It's
and
just
I 100% agree. And it was I think it happened last game. It was either one of the games too. I think it was last game. One of the young guys dropped. I think Dobbs dropped it, or somebody dropped a pass. And I'm like, for that young dude's mental, you got to get him the ball again, or make him a punt return, get the ball to touch in his hand so he can get comfortable in the game. And Aaron Rodgers he never does that. He never did that. Even if like Valdez Scantling or one of them back in the day dropped one, they weren't catching the ball for the rest of the fucking 2-3 weeks probably.
right. And that's the thing. And you mentioned punt return in an interview. They asked Aaron Rodgers about Amari Rodgers, and normally you're supposed to say, well, we got to get him there. He'll get there, but he just said, oh, he's just our punt return guy for now. Like, I mean, that's just the thing. Like, Rodgers is just
Kind of an a-hole this year. It kind of sounded
yeah,
like an a-hole this
he
year.
always has. He always kind of has been though.
He got the Cali swag, man. He's
Yeah, that's true. Plus it's just he feels like and honestly his body of work I guess gives him the right to do it if nothing else. I mean,
yeah.
the man is arguably the most talented quarterback to ever put on a football uniform. So I mean, I guess if anybody has the right to say something, it would be him. But at the same time, like you don't, like I say, I mentioned Tom Brady before. You don't hear Tom Brady talking like that about his receivers,
Never,
no matter how
never.
rough they are.
Never. And I think like that's why I wonder if that's the reason why a lot of we haven't had a lot of big time receivers come here, because maybe that's one of those inside things that they know that he's going to be kind of like one of those hold you extra accountable quarterbacks where it's like, all right, I'm the man. Just be where, what I mean? Be where I'm supposed to be. Be where you're supposed to be, and I'm going to get you the ball type guys and not like pumping his guys up. Always
Right.
like quarterbacks that like pump their dudes up, like offensive line make great catches. I never hear Aaron Rodgers talk about his team that much.
No, he really doesn't. He really doesn't. I mean, he'll and even when he does, you could kind of hear like a little bit of condescension in it. Like when like that interview after the Bears game when he was Aaron Jones, like I can't remember exactly like everything he said, but just his tone of voice almost sounded like, like this is my guy, this is my guy, like he's under me, kind of thing. Like I love like he goes to bat, like almost like he's saying he goes to battle for me, he doesn't go to battle with me. And I feel like Aaron Rodgers just has that mentality towards his teammates. I just don't like that very
And
much.
thinking about it, it kind of makes sense. Like if you're at that level, like competitive level, that ego is going to be there. Where he probably does think those guys are like playing for him. Like he's basically at this point, he's basically like an associate head coach, anyways, on the offense at least, offensive side. Like
Right.
I mean, he's calling he's calling his own plays for the most part. I'm guessing, or he's had a lot of input on him at least. So, like
Yeah.
I think that he probably does kind of walk around with that, like, all right, I'm the man. You guys just do what I say type vibe too.
Yeah.
What do you
And I
think
and
about
I
it?
understand it,
Go ahead.
and I understand it too. I mean, I'll make a comparison to The Last Dance, how Michael Jordan was talking. Michael Jordan in a way was talking like those guys played for me. He said, and then he even said, when you joined the team, you lived by a standard, and I wasn't gonna take anything less. You know, and I get, Jordan needs no introduction. I mean, so he's somebody who I guess, he even said it himself. He said, I earned that right. My teammates didn't endure what I endured and all that. And it may sound a little, and it definitely sounds a little arrogant to those of us in the outside world, but I mean, I I can't say I wouldn't feel that way. Maybe I would.
It
you
makes
know?
perfect sense to me. Like, and even you think about it, like, because Kobe's another one that we always bring up that's like that too, where like, if a player is holding his teammates accountable and also doing what he's saying, like he's living what he's preaching, like I'm like, go for it. I love teammates like that. I was never a teammate like that. I was kind of one that was trying to like be kind of in the back, like a little bit.
Right.
Especially when I got to college. In high school, I kind of got forced to do that, but in college, I was kind of being in the background. But I love those teammates that were like all about the sport, all about the team. I love that, man. That's what gets you the juice. Like,
All right. I can name a few guys from high school, like after you had graduated, who were like that. Like, I mean, we say that for another time, but I can name a few guys who were like that. And honestly, we always say like LeBron James, like he seems in the media like he's the opposite way, but LeBron's probably like that in practice.
oh yeah, it was so funny that we talk about this too. I just saw a video, and I knew this before, just because you can tell by how cringy he is. But Russell Wilson on the sideline, like this last week when he was telling his teammates run say pass run, like I'm like, dude, at the NFL level he would be one of the most annoying people to play with. Like I would hate playing with Russell Wilson, like not as a player on the field but all of his stuff, like his actual skill level, oh definitely, but having to deal with his cringiness off the field, I would never want to play with him ever. That's,
Yeah.
yeah, I know it's sorry. So that's a random anecdote, but like I saw it just right before I got on. I was looking on like scrolling. I'm like, that is hilarious because that'd be annoying as shit.
Right.
So
You know,
what do you think about the defense this week?
this past week I thought played very well. I thought they played very well. I mean, they did give up some big plays in the running game. Like, Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery had some runs that I didn't like very much. But really outside that, they played pretty well. Now, given they played against a pretty pedestrian offense.
Agree.
Now, in the first game, outside of, we were talking about this, we were talking about this during the game. Outside of Justin Jefferson, their defense actually played pretty well. I mean, Justin Jefferson is one of the best in the league, but to the points we were making, he was catching the ball. Nobody was even within 10, 15 yards of him when he caught it.
Exactly, and that's why I think it was that might have been a like the chess game between coaches. I truly believe that they might have schemed up something else for him, and the Minnesota came and moved him to a different position. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it was like I'm thinking from like the coaching brain. I'm like, all right, he shouldn't have been that open. That means that was a really good like that was a game plan thing that went wrong because if they played a lot of zone coverage, what didn't make sense, and it was just they played it odd. So I bet they were expecting something else and got something completely different. That's usually what happens in those games when those receivers have breakout games because usually you can cover a receiver, you can find a way to bracket cover them or get enough guys over by him. So, and like you said, Jefferson is he's ridiculous. Like
Yeah, he
he's
is.
ridiculous.
I mean, the only thing that bothered me in that, and there was obviously a lot of media stuff about that after the game.
Mhm.
I didn't understand why Jair Alexander wasn't on him the whole game.
Yeah, and
I
that's why I'm convinced it was a scheme thing. I'm convinced it was a D coordinator, a DB coach. Like, okay, this will work, and they didn't adjust once they were getting destroyed with it. Because worst come to worst, you put one of the best corners in the league on him and just see how he does. You know what I
All
mean?
right.
Give him a little bit of help. Everybody else play man and take care of what you got to take care of. Like you kind of go to professional mode at defensive back. So it's like that
Right.
that had to be to me that personally just from the playing and coaching experience in DB. I'm like that had to be a scheme that they were trying to stick with way too long when they should have kind of abandoned ship on. I might be wrong, but that's
Yeah.
what it
Well,
looks like.
you gotta, and the thing is, you're a coach, you know this. Coaches are hard headed.
Oh
Coaches are
yeah,
hard headed, and they do not want, and they don't like to feel like their game plan isn't working.
yep.
There was always the biggest knock on Coach Bud before the Bucks broke through and won the championship, that he doesn't stray from his game plan. It was always a knock on Bo Ryan when he was the coach for the Badgers basketball team. He finally loosened the reins when he had Frank Kaminsky and Sam Decker and those guys on the team, and they went to the Final Four. But a lot of coaches, they don't like to believe that what they're doing is not working, even if you clearly see it on the field or on the court or wherever you are.
It's a pride thing. It's 100% pride thing, and especially a lot. Like it was the schools you named were interesting, and like even with the pack, especially in rivalry games, because these coaches know each other. These coaches see each other in the off season, so it's like that guy is best in me, and I know him personally. You know what I mean? Where it's like it's a competitive kind of like it's competitive, but it's more bragging rights.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? So, and I could tell in a game like those, the game with the Vikings and this last game you can see the adjustments, but in that game with the Vikings, you can see it was one of the. It had to be. I'm convinced it was a game plan thing. I'm convinced. Even now, I'm kind of like talking myself into it more, but I'm convinced it was a game plan thing because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and that what you're saying, that does make sense to me, because it's like the Vikings came ready to go too. And you know how it is. Like how it is the first game of the year, especially because Rodgers doesn't play in the preseason. You have these new receivers. You don't have Devontae Adams there anymore. It was a function of the Packers being rusty more than anything.
Oh yeah,
Because I mean, I had guys who don't like the Packers who were texting me like, "Yeah, the Packers suck this year." Normal stuff. They were
yeah,
saying the same thing when they lost to the Saints last year.
yeah,
It's just, to me, it was just a function of the Packers being very rusty, Rodgers not having that chemistry yet. Why do you think the running backs were like the only bright spots? Because the running backs have been there.
yeah,
Jones and Dillon have been there. They should have fed them the ball more. Rodgers should have like taken more of like a game manager role that game and just really handed the ball off a lot more.
yeah.
But
And I think
but at
too,
least the net, but at least against the Bears,
internet lost a little bit. I think we're good a little bit now though.
yeah.
Keep
Yeah,
going, keep
yours
going,
is
keep going,
cutting out a little bit.
keep
Yeah.
going.
And like for the Bear and then but for the Bears game, they cleaned up a lot. I feel like they decided to go a little more of a shorter passing game. Another thing I liked in that Bears game is they did get their veteran involved. Now Sammy Watkins, obviously he's new to the Packers, but Sammy Watkins has been had kind of an underachieving career,
Yeah.
but he's still a veteran who's established in the league.
Yeah, he's a one, or he's a rotation guy for sure. He may not be the guy anywhere, but he's a one, two, or three, or a two or three receiver, depending on your team, anyways. And I agree, getting them and getting Randall Cobb and getting those guys early, because it just as a receiver group, it gives the receiver group confidence. Okay, like one of our older guys made a play. All right, now that some of your younger guys start making plays for you. And like Randall Cobb played a good game. I think that was the key of Aaron feeling. You could see he felt a lot more comfortable this last game of actually just throwing the ball.
Yeah, he and Cobb and Watkins both played well.
Yep.
Watkins made a couple big plays, and I will say if I was to predict any of these receivers, these young receivers, to become a more reliable target, I would say it'd be Romeo Dobbs. I feel like Rodgers is really starting to develop something with him, and he's getting him the ball in the short game, and he's been able to make some good plays. Now, if there's anybody who's got the big playability, it is Christian Watson. Only thing is he can he develop and can he catch that ball, or is he going to
Yeah.
be another Marquez Valdez-Scantling?
Yeah, and it's a bigger stage for Watson. You got to realize too, because he was in North Dakota State, right?
Yes.
See, it's a way bigger stage for him now, so it's a bigger jump from a lot of those guys that play, in the SEC, and like if some of the schools in the Big Ten, the NFL is a step down crowd wise, you know what I mean, and like pressure wise.
Right.
Where he was at North Dakota State, where it wasn't a lot of pressure on him. I'm guessing like they're a powerhouse, they always win. You know what I mean? Like I think that him I think he's one that needs to get the ball a lot and get comfortable.
Mhm.
I think, and we talked about kick return earlier. But I think we should put Dobbs in punt return and kick return. Get him the ball. Just get him the ball so he can get comfortable having a kind of like Randall Cobb. Get him the ball
Right.
as much as possible, because Randall Cobb was a returner for us first. I think he scored his first touchdown that way.
I think his first game of his career, I think he ran a kickback. I
Yeah,
think.
get him the ball. Like, and I will say, I can't even think of his name. I'm so upset at him. Lazard. Like
Yeah.
Lazard he is what we thought he was. He's not that good. They need to move him to tight end. I made the decision they need to move him to tight end. He's a great
Yeah.
blocker. Great
Yeah,
blocker.
and he's not fast. That's the thing. He doesn't have any speed. Yeah, Lazard, he can be reliable, but you're gonna get what you're gonna get from him. And you can say, well, there have been good slow receivers in the past, like an Anquan Bolden, or Devontae Adams ain't really all that fast,
Yep.
but Lazard, yeah, Lazard, he doesn't have that high of a ceiling.
No, and that
There's a reason he wasn't drafted.
exactly. And it's starting to make sense now. I'm like, okay, I know he got hurt last. Didn't he get hurt last game? I'm not mistaken.
He was hurt the game before, and
Game
then he came
before.
back. He was playing hurt
He's
last
playing
game.
hurt last game, and I truly don't think he's like that it was hopes for him to be number one. Never, I don't think so.
Right.
I would put Christian Watson in that position and just force it before I went Lazard to
Yeah,
be.
like throw him into the fire. It's almost
Yep.
like it's almost like it's almost that's funny. That's almost like similar to the Steelers situation right now at at quarterback. Like, do you go with Trubisky or do you throw Kenny Pickett in there?
And see, that's the thing. I'm always for if you see the higher upside with the younger guy, play him now. Like if it's close, if it's a big gap, like so the Brett and Aaron Rodgers, it was a pretty big gap there. So you're like okay, but once that gap gets close, go with the younger guy and play him. Just we got to think of the long term of the team. Like it's a better just play the new guy because if the older guy was sufficient, it wouldn't even be a question.
Right. And look, I mean, look at the Bears last year. They started like one or two like, washed up veterans or like, run of the mill quarterbacks, and then they turned it to Justin Fields. And
Yeah.
obviously Justin Fields didn't look good, but I mean, what they have to lose?
Yeah, and Justin Fields is the one that like he's another one that needs game reps. Like just get him in the game. He's athletic enough to survive where he won't get hurt. He's a big dude. He won't get hurt. And if he does get hurt, it's going to be something that he did to get himself hurt. But for the most part, if he plays regular quarterback, he'll be fine. Get him in there. Take your bumps now because it'll pay off in the long run for him.
Right. And the biggest thing with the Bears, and I thought honestly, like with in the Bears case, the Bears don't have, especially a receiver, they don't really have a lot of weapons.
They don't. They
And
don't.
that was always my criticism of all the people who hated Trubisky. Like Trubisky didn't have a lot to work with. Trubisky really is not a bad quarterback to
He's
me.
not. I like him. To be honest, like the even you go to Jay Cutler time there. Jay Cutler had weapons. Like that was
Yeah.
like they really haven't had weapons since like the Brandon Marshall and that type of time. Like they
Alshon
haven't.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, they haven't had weapons there. So it's like you got quarterbacks playing in a league that is based on having high level athletes on the outside, and you don't really give them that many. You can't just run the ball anymore. It just doesn't work that way.
Right, exactly. Can't play Wisconsin Badgers ball in the NFL.
Exactly. Exactly. We got to do a talk on the Badgers talk too, because I didn't know that Braylon Allen. One, I didn't know he was from here, and one, I didn't know he was that young. Like I had no clue. We got to do an episode on him for sure.
Yeah, we do. Maybe after maybe after this week, because they are playing Ohio State this weekend.
Yeah. And 2 weeks ago, my old DB coach, shout out Jake Dickert, he actually beat the
I
Badgers.
saw that.
That was super dope because Jake's a really good dude. He played at UWSP, and then my freshman year he was my corner coach. So he's a real good dude, real good.
And honestly, a lot of Badger fans, they're casuals. They just root for the Badgers. They don't know anything about football. They were saying, "Oh, the Badgers lost to a cupcake and all that." Like, no, like that was honestly. I read the profile on Washington State before that game. I was like, "Why are the Badgers favored by 17 points? Like, this is a good team. Like, they had a former Badger at playing running back, so he knows the system,
Yep.
and also." All those holding calls on the Badgers. Sure, the Badgers offensive line wasn't blocking right, but the truth is, Washington State's front seven is fast. They were forcing the Badgers to hold them because they were slipping away from them.
And you don't see those type of athletes in the Big Ten. And I'm going to be real, like from Jake's his rise, like he's been at big programs at North Dakota State. Like he's a really, I would say he's a really good football coach. Like he comes from a football family a little bit, but like I knew once he got at a head because a bigger program. I think he was at Wyoming for a little bit too. But when he got at a bigger program, I was like, this dude's going to lead his program, and he's a good player coach too. So he's going to be successful wherever he goes. He reminds me a lot of PJ Fleck, but like kind of like a blue collar PJ Fleck.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That seemed like a good comparison. I watched that game. I feel like he definitely outcoached Paul Christ.
Oh yeah, and he gets fired up. He's yelled at me many a times in games. Like he gets fired, but then he also loves you up while he's fired up. He's a
Right.
good guy. I'm very happy for him. Very happy for him. That was awesome to see that.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like when I was seeing your post, I was like, oh, was he rooting against the Badgers? But I was just like, but then
Yeah, I had to keep it neutral, but I'm like, that's my dude, man. Like
yeah.
I haven't spoken to him in a couple of years, but seeing him at clinics when I was coaching, like he's a good dude. Good dude.
Yeah. So was he DB coach at Point?
Yeah, so he played. So the year before I got there, and I actually remember meeting him on my visit there too. So on my visit there, he was still a player, and then he was GA the next year, but he was a receiver, and they moved him to the DB coach for the that next year. And I think he stayed on defense the whole time out. He's been a DB coach at a couple different schools. I know North
Okay.
Dakota State for sure. I think Montana, Wyoming, and then he got his header job. So proud of him, man. Good
Yeah.
dude. His,
Yeah. That's a
his older brother is crazy. His older brother, I think he went to the military and came back. And my freshman year, his older brother was like 28, and he was playing center for us.
oh,
Crazy.
really?
Yeah, it's crazy. But hard working blue collar guy. Like he's gonna kill it recruiting out there.
Yeah, and that's a tough place to recruit because Washington State that's kind of in the middle. That's not in Seattle area. That's close to the Montana border. That's like middle of nowhere, kind of.
Yeah, that's why I'm already gonna get on the horn with him. Like, okay, we got some city kids that we can get out there to you. We can get their grades all right. We can get you some studs.
That's and honestly, that's a good environment for
Oh yeah,
city kids to go to, like to kind of get away from that city environment and everything. Just kind of go
yeah.
to a place where there isn't really much going on, and just really
Focus in.
learn the country life a little bit, and also just a place where, and even if they don't like the country life, that might even be better because okay, great, now you can just focus on football. You
Exactly.
know,
Yeah, it's just I'm all about it. Like it was big on that with me, and we could do an episode on that too. Of me when I went to Point, like it was so different from my normal environment that I was like, oh, it gives you a complete 180 view of like, okay, this how people live here. It's people live here. And it's just good to just get out your element. Like I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I'm like I'm trying to get kids to go to Point like crazy. So
yeah. Yeah, and D3 is always a good outlet for a lot of city kids. Like, look how many of our guys went to Whitewater.
oh
You
yeah.
know,
Oh yeah. And we got like that's the thing. It's a couple schools like in that loop of that Whitewater, Stevens Point, Oshkosh, like they're close enough, but they're further enough away. You know what I mean? Where it's like you actually get out, but you're still like, you can get home if you need to. You're not across the state. So yeah,
right?
it's so I wanted one question I did want to ask about the Packers. Looking at the run game, I think now, like our left tackle is not even there.
Right.
I think that the Packers have the best 1-2 combination football running back. I'm convinced on it now of how they, especially how they complement each other.
That's true. I can't. Honestly, I can't think of one that is better. I really can't. I will say. I mean, they wouldn't. They're not as good as Jones and Dillon. I will say that combo of Montgomery and Herbert was really good with the
Yeah,
Bears. But
I like those. I like them too.
yeah, but and that's the thing, like, and it's not just about like having running backs who are just as good as each other. It is also about how they complement each other. It is the perfect mix. So Aaron Jones is more of a shifty back. He's got some power. He runs at a good low center of gravity. He's only like 5'8", but
Yep.
he's shifty. He's better at receiving out of the backfield. He's more versatile. Meanwhile, AJ Dillon, I mean, you want to get in his way? Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, he's
He's
just a
Dylan.
downhill runner.
I feel like we caught two of like so Dylan is like that actual running back that the Packers usually have. Like the Mon Green, I'll put my head down. Dorsey Levens, I'll put my head down and go forward because he's a bigger dude too. And I feel like
Eddie Lacy was like that till he
place
got fat.
and yeah, one of the biggest busts. And I feel like just them two
So good
being able to run the screen game and then run, like it's a after and me and one of my buddies watching the game we're having a conversation about like I truly think that this is the best 1-2 punch you can have like
right.
and I can't think of one and I'm not that good in memory like the looking back at the football years but like I can't think of one that actually was more important for their team with having Aaron Rodgers. We have no receivers right now, as you said. Like they actually set a different tone in that game. That was one thing that I saw. Even from the start of the game, the run game actually set a tone, right? And that helped the receivers out so much more.
And if you're looking for one from the past, I thought of one when you were saying that. When they played for the Titans, DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry, but they only played together for like 1 or 2 years. But that was
Exactly.
a good. They complemented each other
Oh
very well.
yeah. Oh yeah. And yeah, and I think it was I think the Packers got a lot to build on. I know we're gonna kind of just try to keep this one a little shorter, but
No, we did. No, we do. But honestly, Derrick Henry. Honestly, I'm not sure Derrick Henry would be the running back he is today if it wasn't for playing with DeMarco Murray. I
oh
feel like DeMarco Murray taught him some stuff.
yeah, and that's the biggest thing is some of those like you look at some of these players. I'm like, dude, you know how much knowledge goes on in those like the individual meeting rooms, like you.
Right.
And that's why I like having Randall Cobb again for the Packers receiving. Like I guarantee Randall Cobb is doing a lot of talking in those meetings.
Very much so. Oh, absolutely. Especially because not only because he's just a veteran receiver in the league, but he's also a veteran playing with Aaron Rodgers. Like he knows how this man operates. He knows how this man thinks and everything. You know,
Yeah. So I think
Robert Tanyan, he's probably like that too. Even though he's not as experienced, he knows how to play with Rodgers, and he's slowly making his way back too. I can see it. He had an ACL injury. He's tore his ACL last year, so obviously that's such a tough injury to come back from, unless you're Adrian Peterson.
yeah. AP,
But
we gotta do some sports side sports talking. AP getting knocked out too.
man. Oh wait, when did this happen?
So I think he boxed Le'Veon Bell in a boxing match. I
Why is
want to say a
everybody
week and a
getting
half,
hurt
maybe 2 weeks
boxing?
ago, and Le'Veon Bell knocked him out.
Why is it that these pro athletes think they're, I mean, well, Le'Veon Bell knocked them out, so but why is it these pro athletes going to boxing like they think it's like
It's
easy?
money,
Like
man. It's money, man. Like the promoters, you think about it. I didn't pay to see it, but I just kind of watched it on like the stream thing. But I was like, all right, I would have paid to see this fight. I think because it wasn't a bad
yeah.
fight. AP is not a
Oh yeah,
bad fighter. It was solid, but like the promoters were throwing out cash. They probably both got 20 grand a piece for that. Just like
oh, easily.
easy,
Easily.
probably more than that. Like,
Remember Nate Robinson? Remember that one?
oh yeah. See, I will say these guys are like you could tell they're a higher level than like Nate Robinson and those guys.
Nate
Look,
Robinson was
Nate
brutal.
Rob, the guy that knocked Nate Robinson out, like people talk about Jake Paul and being like a combat sports fan. Jake Paul's actually good. He's
Yeah,
not.
he is.
He's actually this next fight is against Anderson Silva, who's arguably one of the best MMA fighters of all
Oh
time.
yeah, easily.
And it's gonna. I'm kind of taking. I'm kind of taking the Disney kid over in this
Yeah.
fight. Just he's not a bad fighter. So I'm
No,
like,
he's not at all. I think a lot of people knock him too, but he really's not a bad, no, he's not a bad fighter at all. Like, and I'm not even much of an MMA guy, but like I know like the names you mentioned, obviously like Jake Paul, Anderson Silva, those guys, like yeah,
yeah, that's and even when he knocked out Tyron Wood, so it's funny because Tyron Woodley and Ben Askren, they both trained at Rufus Sport. And Tyron was at the end of when I was coming in. So it was like maybe like a month before he actually moved and started. I think he went to go train in like Vegas or Florida or somewhere. But like he's a specimen athlete. Like to knock and Ben Askren was off of a hip injury. That was the first guy he knocked out. Ben's not a striker. He went to Arrowhead. He's a wrestler.
yeah,
But Tyron Woodley is a dangerous dude. Like I definitely wouldn't fight him. You know what I mean?
right,
So like I don't know. I don't know. Jake Paul's legit. All right, man. We circling around though. I know we haven't talked in a minute. That's probably why. But
yeah, exactly. You know how it is. Yeah. Oh, let
sure.
me get this.
So what grade? Let's end it. What grade do you get the Packers for this last? Our time is running a little bit low here.
The Vikings game definitely a D. Oh yeah, I give him a D because the running game was a bright spot. The Bears game, I would say a B plus. Honestly, I felt like they made some mistakes in that game, but I felt definitely like they made some mistakes for sure. But I feel like they cleaned a lot up in that game too. So, but they weren't perfect, but I think they played well against the Bears. But this is the ultimate test this week.
For sure, and I agree with the D for the first week because it's those first weeks jitters. I would probably go like C plus for week 2. Just the defense played well, but I still think that on offense it's a lot of stuff, and you gotta get everybody back healthy, of course, too. But I think it was an average performance. I'm like, okay, A Rod, we should score 30 points against the Bears defense. So
Yeah. No, absolutely. And Bears defense isn't bad. They have some playmakers, but it's not yeah, it's not like what it, a normal Bears defense is. I mean,
we're like what we remember from Urlacher years and all of that.
Urlacher and Rance Briggs and all those guys, man, that was a heck of a defense.
Like
The
Lil
one that
Mac.
went to the Super Bowl that year with Rex. I mean, you gotta have a good defense. You're going to Super Bowl with Rex Grossman as your
Yeah,
quarterback.
Rex Grossman, the he's like the replacement quarterback for everybody, where he just comes in and wins championships. Though I do respect Rex Grossman because he knows not how not to lose games, or he did.
Right. Just like Jim McMahon was back in '85 when the Bears won that Super Bowl.
Just don't mess it up. Just keep the ball on our side. Don't throw any picks, and we're good to go. Hand this thing up.
Trent Trent Dilfer for the Ravens, Brad Johnson for the Buccaneers. We could go on and on here.
Man, and those dudes got the best jobs in the world. Like you got a Super Bowl ring, and you didn't have to do a whole lot.
Game manager. That's what they call him.
Exactly. Well,
All right. Well, Oh, that concludes our podcast for today. For Getting to Wisconsin Sports, this is John Giddings.
This is Kenny Campbell.
All right, peace.
We out. Peace out, bro.